Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I am your host, Eric Smith. Today, I am talking about A Rumor of Kings by Victor Gischler. This is Kingdom of Ghosts, Book 1, and it's from somebody. There's their logo. Athen Press? I can't read it. First book in a trilogy, a fantasy trilogy, and it's about the main character is this guy, Merrick Niles. He's sort of a rogue, a womanizer, a thief, and he's hired to steal a map. He steals it for himself, hoping to find some treasure, and some things happen, and I'm not going to give anything away, I think, when I say... let's see. Yes, I'm not giving anything away because it's on the back cover. He ends up with 3 voices in his head, and he gets swept up into the fate of a kingdom. Kind of a nutshell. We'll get into it. But before we do, Victor Gischler. I don't recall if I've talked about any Victor Gischler books before. Actually, I know I have. If you go way back, Gestapo Mars, and I think No Good Deed. I believe I reviewed both of those. But it's been a while. Victor Gischler is one of those authors that I found when he was writing comic books. He did a run on X-Men, where he turns Jubilee into a vampire. So I'm on board. He's done a lot of stuff with Marvel's Dracula, their version of Dracula. Some people not a fan of what he did. I enjoyed it. He's done Spirits of Vengeance miniseries, all sorts of comic book stuff. So I found out that he was a writer of books, started reading those. I think Gun Monkey, is that the name of the one that was just turned into a movie called Fast Charlie with Pierce Brosnan? It's been reprinted as a hard case crime book, I think, under the title Fast Charlie. I have a copy that says Gun Monkey because regular viewers know how I feel about movie versions, movie copies of my books. Not a fan. Don't want movie cover copies, and especially don't want a title change. But anyway, so I have Gun Monkey, and as I mentioned, Gestapo Mars and No Good Deed, which is a thriller, and there's Go-Go Girls of the Apocalypse and Vampires A Go-Go, which are both comedy horror stuff. But he's written a ton of crime stuff. I do have other books I haven't mentioned by him. Crime stuff, fantasy stuff. He has an Ink Mage series that I haven't read, but this really sounded interesting to me as a fan of almost said Ghost Rider, Moon Knight, who, a comic book character with multiple personalities. Very intrigued by the idea of this character having these 3 voices in his head. And recently, having finished certain books, I didn't know what I was in the mood for. And this book and the second one, I don't have the third one yet, second one, are right, sort of, if I turn my head a little, in my line of sight. And I was like, hey, I'll give that a try. So for the Too Long Didn't Watch, although we've already gotten pretty deep, I tried to give this 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, but Goodreads wasn't letting me rate it or say that I finished it. I don't know what was going on. Maybe a glitch. I'll go back and see. But it's a 4 out of 5 star book. I really, really enjoyed this. The character of Merrick Niles is the type of character I love. He, again, he's very roguish. He basically just wants to have enough money to go retire somewhere and be left alone, which I can completely understand. But he can't leave somebody behind to be hurt, and he keeps trying to just move on, but he keeps getting pulled in and helping people. And Victor Gischler has a nice, clean writing style. I always make these comparisons anytime I'm talking about fantasy. Lord of the Rings is going to come up, and Victor Gischler falls between the dense, thick storytelling of J.R.R. Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, and say something much more pulpy. Like normally I'd say like Conan the Barbarian, which is definitely pulp, but it's also rather thick and verbose at times. So I was thinking maybe Dragonlance or some of the early Dungeons and Dragons novels that are just simply sort of almost hack and slash. Um, I'm not trying to say anything negative about them, just sort of the style in which they're written. This falls in between. It's not simple, basic pulp. It's certainly not Lord of the Rings, but it does build a world. You know, we meet Merrick Niles isn't even the first character we meet. We meet a couple guys, couple bruisers, who are the go-between between this group of criminals, the Skull and Dagger, I think they're called, but that might not be exactly it. Something like that, though. And so these two characters, these two bruisers, they're the ones that are hiring Merrick Niles. He's supposed to go and get this, steal this map, give it to them. They're going to give it to the people that want it. And as I said, Merrick ends up stealing it for himself when we eventually meet him. And then he meets some people along his journey. And so he's sort of gathering a band of characters around him. But while all of this is going on, the story is moving around to different parts of the kingdom. And so this is called the Scattered Lands, the Scattered Kingdom. So it is Greymond, the Scattered Kingdom. So long time ago, the king at that time was killed, and the kingdom of Greymond basically fractured, and now you have dukes and barons and people who are just controlling their lands. There's no leader of the entire realm. But of course, there's conflicts, and there are Northmen who just raid all the time. And while this is in this world, there's this new thing, the Union, that's basically, I guess, depends on how you might look at it. It seems communist because the leader of the Union keeps talking about how, you know, everybody just needs to be treated equal. They're going to contribute equally. They're going to receive equal, whatever, treatment, payment. The army, everybody wears the same uniform. There's very little to distinguish anyone of a higher rank. Of course, the guy that started all this lives lavishly, but they are essentially sweeping across the scattered kingdom, putting anyone to death, including children who get in the way. And so all of this is going on while Merrick Niles is simply trying to get enough money to retire, essentially. But he gets caught up in there's a baron whose home is under siege by the Northmen, which is not normally what the Northmen do. They usually just raid, take what they want, and yeet out. But now they're laying siege to this fortress, this castle, this barony, and Merrick Niles gets sort of caught up in this, and there's prophecies of a king returning, and all sorts of stuff going on. And I really, really enjoyed it. It's once I got into it, I didn't want to put it down. I kept turning the pages. I like the characters. Once again, this has happened more than once this year. There was a character, a bad character, but I'm like, all right, I think this is the kind of bad guy that I'm going to enjoy. And then they do something that it's, nope, irredeemable. Screw this character. I can't wait for something horrible to happen to them. This is not the sort of bad guy that I'm going to, you know, Can't wait to see what kind of shenanigans he gets up to next. Nope, screw that guy. But spoilers. So close your eyes, plug your ears for the next 30 seconds. It's this guy right here. That wasn't even 30 seconds. So there's sword fights and there's magic and there's I was gonna say creatures. But now that I think about it, I'm trying to think if there are any creatures. I'm not sure there are. There might be. I might just be forgetting them. If there are, they're not prominent. But there is magic. I like the magic system that's in this. It's very basic. But interesting characters that I started to care for, and characters I wanted to see get what was coming to them. Complicated characters, politics and intrigue, but not so complicated and dense and everything that it becomes confusing. I'm not going to wait too long before I read the second book. I think there's a few things I want to read first, but I'm definitely going to jump into the second book relatively early in the new year. I say in the new year because I'm recording this on December 31st, but you won't see it until probably mid-January. By the time you see this, I may have read the second book, and I'm definitely going to get the third book. But anyway, that's my rambling way of saying A Rumor of Kings by Victor Gischler is a really fun fantasy novel, 4 out of 5 stars, if Goodreads would let me rate it. I'm looking forward to seeing what's happening next. That's Merrick Niles. That's Red Williams. And they're fighting outside an old keep that's fallen apart, but it's very important to the story. There you have it. A Rumor of Kings, Victor Gischler, Kingdom of Ghosts, Book 1. Speaking of ghosts, there is something with a ghost that we have no idea what it means. Hopefully, we'll get some answers in Book 2 or Book 3, but it's one of the few things that something happens and we have no idea what it's about. Everything else is pretty straightforward as far as the politics and what's going on. But there you have it. So, question for this video. And I think this is something I've asked before. I'm almost certain of it. But how do you feel about authors you enjoy stepping outside of their typical genre? I think I have discussed this before. I was talking with someone at work. This is a long, long time ago, back when I was a picture framer. We were talking about books, and he said something about he hated Westerns. He tried to read a Western once, read one chapter, didn't like it, never picked up another one. And I said, well, who's your favorite author? He said, so-and-so. I said, well, what if they wrote a Western? You love everything they've done. What if they wrote a Western? Would you pick that up? They're like, no, Westerns suck. Which to me was kind of a strange answer. But anyway. But some people are like that. They don't like a thing. They're not going to read that thing. What are your thoughts on it? If you're a fan, I'm trying to think of someone who generally just writes in a single genre. But let's say Stephen King, he doesn't. But the majority of Stephen King's work, I think people would agree, is horror. Whether supernatural or thriller type horror, it's horror. Yes, he has some fantasies and some other things, some crime novels. But although Stephen King is a terrible example, because I think most Stephen King fans, like real Stephen King fans, are going to read it, at least try it. But, if he wrote something way outside his genre, you going to pick that up and read it? Or are you going to be like, yeah, I love Stephen King, but I have no interest in that? I'm looking around just trying to find somebody, but a lot of the authors I read don't just write, I think, exclusively one type of thing. Even I'm looking at Robert B. Parker. Mysteries is his big was his big thing, but he wrote westerns as well, and one book that I consider, at least one that I consider a romance. Um, but hopefully you understand the question and can answer it. For me, obviously, I think if I'm a fan of the author, I'm gonna at least try whatever it is they're doing. Brian Smith, great author. I follow him on Facebook and elsewhere on social media, and he's talked about, he's a working author. He needs basically every sale to pay his bills and feed himself and everything. He doesn't have Stephen King money, and so he'll talk about the fact that he'll say, I really want to write a western, but I don't think it's going to sell. I need to do another extreme horror novel, or I need to do another novel in this series that I've got. Now he has been working on something uh, kind of experimental, I suppose. He talks about it's going to be huge, it's going to be very different. He doesn't know if people are going to be interested in it, but he really, really wanted to write it, and he says, he buckled down. He's writing it, but he's also writing some other things in between to make some money. But I've told him anytime he talks about this, I've said, you want to write a western, you want to write whatever, I'm going to pick it up and give it a try because I'm a big fan of Brian Smith's stuff. Not saying I'm going to enjoy it, although chances are, if it's a writer I like them because of how they write. If they're simply because they're telling a different type of story, I feel I'm still going to enjoy their writing, if that makes sense. The only big exception, I don't read romance. But, if Brian Keene wrote a romance, I would try it because I don't think it's going to be. When I say romance, I tend to think of things like Danielle Steele, Harlequin romances. It's not a genre that interests me at all. But if someone writes, someone like Brian Keene, or even I would J.H. Moncrief, I believe, has romance. I haven't found them yet, and there are romantic elements in her horror novels and stuff. But I'll read her romance because I'm a big fan of her writing. I'll give it a try. Don't think, let's say I read one and it blows me away, I'm still not going to go read Danielle Steele. I think I tried one once. But, I've tried some romance, like the big names, didn't do anything for me. What about you? Do you like to step out? Do you like to see an author step outside of what they normally do? And do you support them when they do so? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post spoiler warning. We try to be polite here at the Low Budget Review Show. Please like, share, and subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff. And if you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronan5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, fuzzy animals, is Eric Smith 5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH 5757. If you're on Blue Sky, I am @EL Smith. That's all I have for you. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith, and until next time, read more books.